time for another sword! By the way, this will of course be a prop sword if any of you thought otherwise. I'm not cool enough for actual blacksmithing, and my noodle arms wouldn't get me very far anyway. Now, I start off by making a paper cutout of the sword, so that when I make the actual sword I know exactly how large to make everything, and I have something to trace for consistent shapes to cut out. But most importantly, it's for intimidation factor. You may be thinking that a flimsy paper cutout of a sword isn't very intimidating, but we can't leave ourselves undefended while making the actual thing. Also, I refuse to measure things out and the two sides are uneven, but we can ignore that. Right, the sword looks done to me. There, video over, it's all good. Okay, but jokes aside, this thorny part, in my opinion, ended up being a bit too long, so just gotta fix that real quick. Alright, problem solved. Just cut it out of your life whenever you have an issue. Okay, so now it's time for you to actually start working on the sword, which of course means the wire core. I didn't actually film bending the wire, because bending a coil of wire into straight pieces, then making very precise bends, all while filming it and trying to make it interesting, is what we call hell on earth. So I just have all these pieces, and I color coded on the cutout where they're going to go, and now they're just getting taped together. Now that I've finished the wire core, I can start to build up the actual shape of the sword. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to sell out. This century, I'm trying to defeat YouTube. I don't really have a plan or a method of how exactly I'd defeat YouTube, but please consider subscribing. Okay, back to gluing paper onto stuff. Actually, I suppose my source could assist me in my quest. Now that the paper's on, I have to trim this and then add cardboard, and also of course put some stuff over the handle. And by the way, I got some new shirts. There isn't much point in mentioning this, but I thought I'd mention it. Before I was wearing, sweatshirts and this other dumb shirt thing, but now I have some new shirts. So the next thing for me to do would be to add cardboard, but for now, I'm going to kidnap you. This is the table where I do stuff. It's kind of a mess. See, I made this tripod, and I was excited to use it, but it kind of sucks, so I won't be using it. Yeah, let's get into the cardboard now, shall we? Also, I adopted another brush. His name is Henry. And you might be a bit concerned about the last time that I named something. Don't worry, I don't have access to lava in real life. Yet. Hey, so now it's time for my favorite part. Sanding. Just, tons of sanding to, make this all smooth. My favorite. Just a bunch of menial sanding. I think it's time that I finally retire this brush. I mean, alright, so now that everything has been all nice and sanded and has some smooth paper over it, we can move on to the next part, which is to work on adding in thicker layers of cardboard for some nice details. Make it look all snazzy. So let's get into that. Okay, so I didn't actually record gluing on the handle because I suck, but what I did was I wrapped cardboard around it and gradually cut it to get the right shape. I mean, you can kind of tell by looking at it, but I still felt like saying it. I also glued some more cardboard onto the crossguard and then started eviscerating the handle. So, I'm mostly done with the cardboard. Really, the only thing I've left to do is to finish a bit of work on the handle. However, I'm going to start working on the complicated gems and other weird shapes. So, instead of making it out of layers of cardboard, I had the idea, which is to make it out of sort of blobs of paper and glue. And I've since mutilated these pieces in a variety of ways, but it should be less work and also end up looking better. So let's hope that that works out. So to make the paper glue blobs, first I give the paper a brutal death and then drown their corpses. Okay, so I mash up the paper with a skewer and squeeze it to drain off the extra water so it isn't mush. I then use the power of glue to turn it back into a mush, but a gluey mush. After making the shapes out of the stuff, I put tissue paper on it to hopefully make it slightly less lumpy. I made the thorns, discs, and round gems. Then added even more tissue paper on the lumpy gems. Except the discs were a complete waste of time because I could have made them out of cardboard and I didn't even like how they look. So I changed my mind and decided to make little cardboard rings to go with the round gems. I mixed up some more, I'll call it paper clay for the pommel, and I had to add some, and I had some extra, so I just put it on the handle because I was gonna have to sand it anyways. I still have some last detail pieces to make, which will be some gems. See, these pieces, it isn't quite their time yet to be glued on. However, these gems, they are very tricky things. They have very complicated faces that need to fit together correctly. So I did some good old math to figure out how long each of these side lengths should be. But the one issue is that I don't know what angle to have these. Now, I do know enough math to figure it out, but it takes a lot of work, and I'm something known as lazy, so I have a different idea instead. So my math and I measure out the pieces as precisely as possible and arrange them into their triangles. I also make a diagonal for the quadrilaterals since there's many ways to rearrange the four sides. Stay in school, kids. It makes you better at art. Totally didn't just rip that off of a techno joke. Anyways, I got all the pieces cut out. I'm pretty sure they want to gang up on me, but I glue them down so that they can't hurt me. because the pieces are so small, I could just smack down a bit of glue and they'll stay up until they dry. Now, the last time I made a hollow gem, it got a bit, crushed. So for good measure, I decided to fill this one with the paper clay stuff. Also, it turns out that paper clay is an actual thing, but I'm just gonna steal the name. Bada bing, bada boom, another finished gem to neglect gluing on. I'm going to sand the handle and glue on paper to the details. The paper is to make sure it has all the same texture, but more importantly to cover up the gaps in the side of the cardboard, so I'm gonna continue working on that. So I got everything here all nice and finished and it's ready to paint. I'm going to paint these ones on separately, and as for the colors I'm going to use, it's gonna have colors. Yeah. Really all I know is that I want it to be kind of themed after like the Terraria jungle, maybe. But I should, probably actually plan out what colors I'm gonna use. Welcome to the planning space where I draw stuff and my hands no longer exist, so yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so I say that this is a pretty nice looking sword. I have a bunch of notes here, but I can just hear. I don't know, I'm pretty proud of this. I guess it's time to get to painting it. So I was planning on adding twine to this area, so I lazily add some wood details. For the lighter color on the light mahogany, I use watered down white, and the same thing but with the black on the dark mahogany. To add detail to the crossguard, I use super watered down darker color and dry brush a lighter color, though it's hard to see on camera. Yada yada, I do the same detailing stuff for the handle, which I was planning on covering with twine anyway, so I don't really know why I did it. I think I just like to create extra work for myself instead of doing the work I'm supposed to do. So now that's all good and painted, and I was gonna put twine here and here, but I didn't really like the color of the twine with the color of the sword. So I guess now it's time for the final showing.